Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, Texas, Oklahoma. As a college football fan, I don't think it gets much better. I'm going to take an early look at this football game. Obviously, both teams on bye this week, heading into this matchup next Saturday. And, we're not going to get into our extensive preview and prediction. We'll do that on Sunday afternoon. But I do want to take a look at least we're sitting here 8.5 days out. What are the bigger storylines and matchups that we're going to see in this football game? Fired up to get into it now. Before we do, and as always, Texas fans, Oklahoma fans, just college football fans who enjoy this game as much as I do, would love to hear from y'all in the comment section in terms of what storylines and matchups are you most looking at within this football game. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I think this is where it's got to start, right? This Texas defensive line versus an Oklahoma offensive line that the Sooner fans will be the first ones to tell you it just hasn't been good enough for Oklahoma to start 2024. We kind of had question marks about it heading into 2024. We don't have those answers yet heading into this matchup. And you look at this Texas defensive line and say, yeah, they lost guys like Tavondre Sweat, like Byron Murphy. But what we've been talking about with this Texas defensive line is although they might not be as dominant on the inside of this Texas defensive line, you take a look at those edge rushers. I think it's a better unit than it was last year. Now, you look at this matchup, I think there's two storylines that you're looking at, not only pass protection, which has been a problem for Oklahoma, but also running the football. And you look at these two teams and how they match up. Oklahoma's offense, 3.7 yards per carry. That's 92nd in the country, allowing a sack on 9% of dropbacks. That's 111th in the country. When you can't run the football consistently, you're finding yourself in those second and third and longs, and then you can't pass protect. That's a problem if you're Oklahoma. And we've kind of seen it rear its ugly head specifically in that Tennessee game. If you're Texas, you got a top 20 rushing defense in the country, only allowing 3.2 yards per carry. That's 20th in the country. And you're sacking the quarterback 8.6% of dropbacks. That's top 30. And so if you're a Texas fan, if you're a Texas defensive line, you are looking at the biggest storyline in this game, stopping Oklahoma running the football on first and second down. And then you're pinning your ears back and trying to get after the quarterback. Now, a caveat to this conversation is Oklahoma going with Michael Hawkins kind of adds a little bit of a different element, not only in terms of how they can run the football with a little bit more of a dynamic quarterback, but it also kind of affects how you want to rush the passer. And when you're going after Michael Hawkins, you want to make sure you're disciplined in your run lanes because I think up to this point at least, the most dangerous aspect that Michael Hawkins brings to this Oklahoma offense is what he can do kind of being slippery in the pocket, extending plays, and then using his legs to hurt opposing defenses. And so if you're Texas, yeah, you want to pin your ears back, but you also want to make sure that you're keeping Michael Hawkins within the pocket. You look at these Texas edge, that's where I think it starts. A true freshman Colin Simmons. So we're talking about Dylan Stewart at South Carolina being an absolute dude as an edge rusher. I mean, Colin Simmons has been just as good. He's leading Texas with 9 quarterback hurries, a 23% pass rush win rate. Barron Sorrell, Trey Moore, Broughton on the inside. It's been a very good pass rush unit for Texas. That's, I think, by far the matchup that will be most indicative of how this football game goes. I think the second thing, and we're going to get into some things that might favor Oklahoma too, but I think the second thing, if you're a Texas fan looking at kind of some advantages that they might have in this football game, Texas's explosive plays versus a Sooner secondary that is aggressive. They're turning the football over, which we're going to talk about, but has been prone to give up some explosive plays. You take a look at Oklahoma's numbers, 7.9 yards per pass attempt. That's 87th in the country. Now, they're aggressive. They're getting their hands on a lot of footballs. They're top 10 in the country in forcing turnovers per game. That being said, when you try to be that aggressive, sometimes you do give up the explosive play. And if you're Texas, can you walk that line between, hey, we're not going to give Oklahoma those turnovers, but we are going to make them pay for being aggressive in terms of hitting explosive plays? And I think Texas does a really nice job of kind of blending. There's a couple different ways you can hit explosive plays in the passing attack. One, just pushing the ball down the field. You have guys who have emerged as those kind of guys, right? Isaiah Bond comes to mind. Wingo's been phenomenal as another true freshman. You've seen Texas attack the deeper thirds, specifically a little bit more with when Arch Manning's in the football game. Now we're going to get Quinn Ewers the next Saturday. That being said, you've seen Texas's ability to attack the deeper third. But what Coach Sark does a really nice job of in terms of also creating explosive plays in terms of yards after the catch. When you look at Texas, 900 yards after the catch throughout the first 5 games. There are a lot of teams that don't even have 900 yards, period, throwing. And Texas has been able to manufacture that just in terms of yards after the catch. And so if you're Oklahoma, one, you got to be wary of Texas pushing the ball down the field 20 plus yards. But you also have to make sure that you're scrunching down on this Texas defense and not giving them ability to operate after the catch. And again, Coach Sark is a mastermind at dialing it up and not only down the field, but also getting his playmakers the football in space and letting them operate after the catch. I think you're going to see just both teams coming off a bye. Coach Sark, one of the best in the business, calling the plays on offense. Brent Venables, probably one of the best defensive minded coaches we see in the country. This is going to be a fascinating game of chess between these two head coaches. Now, if you're Oklahoma, I think this is the big story here. This is an Oklahoma defense that is forcing a ton of turnovers, 2.6 per game to be exact. You can say turnovers are luck. Oklahoma's creating these turnovers. These aren't just footballs that are kind of falling into their hands. They do a really nice job simulating pressure. They do a nice job kind of changing the picture late for the opposing quarterback. If you're Oklahoma, this is an avenue where you can find yourself in this football game. We've seen Oklahoma time and time again, create these difference-making turnovers to keep this Oklahoma team in football games, not only against Auburn, but going back to that game against Tennessee. I mean, if this Oklahoma offense was just semi-capable in that football game, Oklahoma's defense did everything they could to keep Oklahoma in that football game against Tennessee. The offense couldn't get anything going. And so if you're Oklahoma trying to create turnovers, you're seeing Zach Alley, the injection of Zach Alley into this defense. Like they're so much more aggressive with their safeties. And again, I think that has something to do with maybe giving some explosive plays up. But hey, we're going to walk in our safeties. We're going to have some of those robber looks with safeties controlling the middle of the field and looking to turn the football over. That's Oklahoma. And I think they're going to need some of those plays to win this football game. And then if you're Texas, there's there's not been a lot to nitpick with how Texas has played to start the 2024 year in the month of September. If there's one thing that you might nitpick, 1.4 turnovers per game ain't great. And it's 75th in the country. I mean, almost every single important stat that you see with Texas, they're top 30, in some cases top 10. They haven't been great in terms of not turning the football over. And I think that might have something to do with the young quarterback in Arch Manning, who a little bit of a gunslinger and no doubt is maturing as a quarterback in terms of how to walk that line in terms of I can make any throw on the football field, but also not turn the football over. But you're going to get Quinn Ewers, which Quinn Ewers has taken massive strides in terms of not putting the ball in harm's way, but also making big time throws. So I think that certainly will help Texas. And I think the last matchup you're looking at is Texas in pass protection versus Sooners pass rush. You look at Oklahoma, sacking the quarterback 11.5% of dropbacks. That's number 4 in the country. Oklahoma is so versatile in terms of how they want to get after the passer. You're not only going to see their front 4, right? You guys got like R. Mason Thomas is stepping up in a big way as an edge rusher. Caden Willard on the inside. Like Grayson Halton's looked phenomenal for Oklahoma. All across that defensive line, they can really impact the quarterback in terms of the pass rush, but they also do a really nice job of sending pressure, whether it's safeties, whether it's corner blitzes, whether it's linebackers. This is the Brent Venables defense. And I think we finally are seeing that complete form in terms of, hey, we're going to be really aggressive. We're going to try to win the football game based on the back of our defense. They can get after the quarterback in a lot of different ways. Now you look at this Texas pass protection and say it's been one of, if not the best offensive lines in all of college football to start the year. And as a Michigan fan, after that week 2 game against Texas, I was like, well, is our defensive line just not all that good? It turns out Michigan's defensive line is pretty dang good. We've dominated the last couple of games up front on the defensive line. I think it turns out that Texas's offensive line, specifically in pass protection, is absolutely elite. Now, you have one of the best left tackles in the country in Banks, but I also think it has so much to do with, 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen you see on this Texas front, they've played so much football together. So it's not only individually winning your pass protection reps, but in terms of picking up blitzes, communicating up front. Texas has been elite in those categories. That's going to be another fascinating chess match to watch in terms of, hey, BV is going to want to bring pressure from a lot of different ways. Can this Texas offensive line hold up in pass protection? I think the last storyline, the one guy we had question marks about, Cam Williams on the right side, has been awesome. And so Texas is one of those rare offensive lines that I think can block up Oklahoma. And we're not going to say that much about a lot of offensive lines over the next couple weeks, but I do think Texas has a chance at somewhat neutralizing what Oklahoma can do in their pass rush. This is going to be a fascinating game. Again, we're going to take a deeper dive into this football game Sunday afternoon, but wanted to kind of get ahead of it and just talk about a matchup that, again, as a college football fan, like, I don't think it gets any better. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Talk to y'all later.